Ladies and gentlemen, I am here with the two participants, the contestants for season 3 of Coaching Journeys. This is the race to 25NL between two 10NL players. We introduced them in the last video. First off, from Beijing, we have Shu. Good morning.
Hello, everyone.
And from Belgium, we have Jurgen.
Hello, everyone.
We are here today to begin an epic voyage. Season 3 is the one I really want to get right, guys. I want you learning way better than Mark or Jess did in season 1 or 2. I want to be efficient. I want to take each topic day by day, lesson by lesson. I have a PowerPoint prepared for you in just a second on the topic of fast playing versus slow playing, how to get the max out of our value hands. I think this is a key cornerstone for micro and low stakes poker, just for YouTube, but for the audience as well. Hopefully you guys will get a ton out of this video also. And then we're going to look at some of your hands. I'm going to get you to cross-examine each other with your hands where you had value, critique each other. You are rivals in a sense because you're racing to 25NL, but you're also going to be colleagues working together, learning together. Let's jump into it. Today's topic is fast playing and slow playing. Fast playing is betting or raising to facilitate quick pot growth towards the investment ceiling for a value hand. Slow playing is taking an action that results in less immediate pot growth towards the value hand's investment ceiling than we would normally. How about you guys with the concept of an investment ceiling for a value hand? Is that alien to you, or have you heard that before from maybe like Carrot Poker School materials or something? Start with you, Jurgen, because you're on screen.
So I understand the concept of investment ceiling. So it's the amount of money your hand wants to invest into the pot. But I think I misjudged the amount of money I want to put into the pot with my hands, and sometimes I put too much in or too less. I think that's the difficult part of it for me.
Definitely, like where your value hand actually is in terms of equity is the starting point there. But then there are all these factors that determine how to best translate that equity into EV. And what we're going to look at on the next slide is, when do we do that by fast playing? When do we do that by slow playing? It gets pretty complicated. I sent you guys over this slide a few days ago to look at. You've had a look at it. Shu, what are your initial thoughts on this topic, fast playing, slow playing? What was your reaction to this slide when I sent it over?
I think before I definitely has the slow play syndrome. It's like trying to trap the villain when I have a really good hands where I completely forgot the investment ceiling, like should be according to my hand strengths, how much money I want to put in there so I can get most value. That's where the EV is from. It's not from just, like it's from when you have a good hand and you get more value.
Yeah.
That's what I understand.
Yeah, the natural instinct there is sometimes I want to keep my opponent in the pot. Like it's going to feel a bit bad or negative if they fold, and I want to avoid the feeling that there's no chance of making money now because they folded. But a villain who is hanging around not investing into a tiny pot is not really much use to us when we have a strong hand. They may as well just not be there if we're not going to make a ton of money from them. That's how I think about it. These factors are numerous. There's 5 of them. We have like the opposites on each side here. So it's really just 5 factors, not 10. But I want to start at factor number 1, drawy, merged or condensed villains compared with polar or air heavy villains. And then we're going to look at a hand that's actually relevant from one of your databases about this factor. So Jurgen, what are your thoughts on this first factor? How's this making sense to you?
So drawy and merged and condensed means that the board is wet. There are a lot of hands that can call that are worse, that are having some type of draws, or that are mediocre hands and not super strong. So you want to get as much value as possible before the board runs out bad, or they can make their hand, or you have to stop investing for your hand. Yeah, that's what I think about it.
Mm-hmm. Shu, anything you would add to that about drawy, merged, condensed compared with polar or air heavy?
I think it's more dynamic. I'm familiar with the words because I bought your course, but I forgot.
Did you use code EMBARK25 to save 25% on your poker education at carrotcorner.com? It's okay.
No, I didn't. I think that was before that. I know you said that in every video.
That's sad. Yeah. Okay. We'll make it up to you by boosting your win rate instead. So what do you mean by dynamic then? What else would you add to that explanation?
It's like anything can change maybe on the turn or on the river. Could be a straight or a flush, or like more like dynamic.
So you guys are both focusing on texture, which is part of what makes your opponent more drawy, merged or condensed. Like if the texture doesn't give villain lots of trips because it's not a paired board, then villain is going to be more condensed, right? We open the button, villain calls the big blind, and the flop is 8-4 deuce rainbow. Villain is mostly capped and condensed here. We can start betting very big if we want. If we get a brick turn, we can be over betting and stuff like that. That's an example where texture does cause their range to be middling, merged, condensed, full of hands that will call us, second best hands, but lose to our value that are going to be calling us. So texture can cause that. The other thing that causes that, that's perhaps more important to understand in some spots, is action sequence. So when your opponent bets smaller, when they could have bet bigger, it's going to merge out their range. It's going to condense them a bit. They're going to be less polarized. When they check where they could have bet, where they call where they could have raised, they're going to be less polarized. They're going to be more draw emerged or condensed. So whenever we're hand reading our way through a spot, we want to be thinking in terms of both texture and action sequence, and those are really the two main factors that cause us to update our evaluation of the opponent's range and then decide what we want to do about that. So let's look at a hand that compares draw emerged and condensed villains to polar or air heavy ones. Let's look at a fast play, slow play spot from one of your databases and get you guys to analyze each other's play a bit here. Hand number 1 for today. This is a hand from Jurgens' database, which means that Shu, his adversary, is going to critique his play, thinking about the fast play, slow play dichotomy here. So we're on the big blind with King Jack offsuit and villain opens 3x. Feel free to critique stuff that's not about fast play, slow play as well. We can talk about this whole hand. And Jurgen decides to call Shu. What do you think of that? You're going to give him the green light? You're going to give him the red light for this? What are you thinking?
I think call is fine. Also, it's like borderline 3-bet, right? Maybe. I think call is also fine. Like
Yep. So
call or raise.
Yep. The fact that button has 3x'd makes me already go into detective mode. And I'm like, what kind of poker player 3x's the button? So I'm kind of partial to 3-bet here just because when it's a recreational, big cards perform better in 3-bet pots, building pots with big cards, hitting top pair, you know, making a pot big, hitting a king and stacking the fish is kind of like a poker 101, you know, value betting for dummies thing to do. I think 3-bet might actually be better here if they're not like really tight or they don't like usually 2x or something like that. Then I think this is actually maybe slightly preferable to 3-bet, but not a big deal. All right, Shu, back to you. You're analyzing Jurgen's play. The flop is King Jack 4 rainbow. Villain bets 3.3 big blinds half pot. Is this fast play or slow play? What do you think, Shu?
I think slow play. I because that's kind of his board, and if you raise, like, what is your bluff? And maybe I don't know.
Okay, great.
I think it's slow play. Yeah, just call. Yeah.
So one of the things we'll be doing in this series is that I'll be saying to you guys, you don't deserve to play the game. Neither of you do. No, I'm just kidding. I won't ever say that to you. But I will point out thought processes that we want to keep in your game. I will give you PowerPoint slides and cheat sheets so that you can install new thought processes that are really good. And I will also point out where you have thought processes that aren't so good. What are our bluffs is a thought process that might not be that relevant to whether we want to value raise. But in this case, I can very easily explain to you what our bluffs are. I think the fact that you're asking that probably means that you're not finding the bluffs here, or that you're being too fussy with the bluffs. Like you're thinking bluffs are flush draws, bluffs are straight draws. There aren't that many, right? But bluffs here could just be like queen 9. They could just be an open ender. They could be 5-6 of hearts. They could be ace 5 of hearts. They could be a backdoor kind of draw as well. There are plenty of bluffs here. They're just lower equity ones. And if you raise a value range in this spot of like King X, good King X plus 2 pair in a set, you do have plenty of bluffs you can throw in here. So I wouldn't worry about that. When we're looking at fast play, slow play, we're trying to get to these factors in the cheat sheet. And let's start with the top one. Let's force ourselves to think about how merged, dry / condensed our opponent is compared with how polar or air heavy they are. So at this point in the hand, Shu, how merged versus polar do you think the button is when they bet half pot there? Are they more merged or are they more polar? Like, where would you go from that?
I think more merged.
I agree. I think people overinvest for the c-bet sizing. The recreational player is not going to be building some like really defined, chiseled polar range. They're going to just be betting like all their stuff, right? When they're betting all their stuff, you have to remember they can have a jack, they can have queen 10, they can have queen 9, they can have a king. So when you just call, there will be quite a large section of hands that they check back on the turn with, and then you end up on the river with just half pot invested, which is not really ideal. If we think about the way this could go in theory, like if we were against a proper opponent that was being aggressive on the next node, and this is actually one of our factors, next node over bluffed makes us want to slow play, because by leaving villain's bluffs in, we guarantee ourselves a bit more money later from that part of his range, right? From the air hands in his or her range. So we want to actually do that when we think think the next street's going to be bluffed a lot. I'll go over to you now, Jurgen. How often do you think a recreational player is doubling, triple barreling as a bluff in this spot? Do we want to start targeting air hands here and try and maximize from them, or against the recreational, do we want to more think about like the second best hands and merged hands in their range and, you know, target them? What would be your thoughts on that?
I would think here that he still has like the over. I don't know if they actually overbluff this particular board. I think on lower boards they probably do more. So yeah, if I would play this hand again, I'll just always raise this because they have so many second pairs, drawy hands. I think I just want to put as much money as possible. Even we do beat very good value hands from them as well. And then I think when we go to the turn and it goes check, you're just on a river spot where it's too hard to put a lot of money in.
I like that. I think the big priority for both of you here to recognize is that you must prioritize pot growth because you're very far away from the investment ceiling for this hand. This hand is mighty. It has a very high investment ceiling. And when you're out of position on the flop, you're very far away from that. And you're against a merged range and you're against a population. Like, forget that this is a recreational that 3x pre. Even if this is just an unknown or a reg, you're against a population that by and large at 10 NL is under bluffing later when you slow play and not great at folding things like king queen by the river if you fast play. So you generally want to be fast playing at these high SPR spots against these mergy ranges that are just betting without definition, especially out of position on the flop where if you call, the turn can go check and pot can stagnate big time there. If we go over to our cheat sheet again here, we can see here that if we go through each factor for this spot, firstly, villain's definitely more on the merge side than the polar or air heavy side because they just have a lot of stuff in between. They do have air, they do have strong hands too, but they have mainly middling hands or a lot of middling hands that we can get value from. The next node is probably more underbluffed if we call than overbluffed, so that incentivizes fast play. The current node, if we raise, is probably a bit overfolded if they're betting too wide, so which is like slightly towards slow play, but this one isn't such a big deal. The investment ceiling is very far away. We can get lots more money into the pot with this hand than is currently in there, and this hand will want to play for stacks on many runouts. When you're thinking about investment ceiling, guys, always consider how many runouts will you want to play a very big pot on. With king jack on such a harmless bone dry board, you'll want to play a giant pot on tons of runouts. If this board was 8-7-6 and you had two pair, there'd be a lot of runouts you don't want to play a giant pot on, and the investment ceiling would on average be lower for two pair on 8-7-6 than it would for two pair on king jack 4, right? Because the board stays clean by the river on king jack 4 more often. Finally, this hand doesn't benefit much from fold equity, and that's fine, but it does benefit a bit because if villain has pocket sixes here, you're not actually making any money, particularly by calling. Like, you're not going to make that much more money against sixes by calling. And if you raise and they fold sixes, they fold two outs to a set that's going to not just beat you, but destroy you for your whole livelihood. You're going to lose your house and your job and everything if villain has sixes in this spot. If we go back to this hand, we do raise, so we're happy with this. Okay, Shu, back to you because you're critiquing your rival's hand. Yes. Here. What now?
What happened? He checked? I didn't.
We raised the flop to this sizing. Villain called. Yeah. We got this turn.
Yeah. Oh, you mean what he should do right now? Mm-hmm. Is keep betting, piling money, like put all in the end.
Right.
SPR like around like 1 or something.
Yeah, so make a bet that leaves SPR 1 for the river. Yeah, I think that's fine. Put it at kind of, people use the term geometric. Sorry.
I think pot is good.
Yep. I like pot here. It's the same principle, right? We've fast played the flop. Villain is now more merged and condensed than before because they have called. So they've moved towards more stuff. Queen 10, Jack 10 of whatever, King Queen, Ace King, Aces, Queens. Give them a chance to just call down. Do not ever let the pot stagnate here. What are you going to give Jurgen out of 10 for this turn sizing? What score?
It's pretty good. I mean, 20 is like 85%.
And then on the river, would you get tricky, trappy, jam. Sneaky, check, hope the fish bluffs?
No, just jam.
Yep.
Just jam.
They're very condensed. So if villain did have Queen 10, you'd want to check, but you can't see their cards. And there are far more combos of merged condensed stuff in range here than stuff that's going to aggress. And if you check, most crucially, the next node, remember back to our cheat sheet, the next node is going to be played passively. They're going to take that king and be like, thank God I got to showdown, I check back. They're not going to just shove now with top pair. And so next node is under bluff and just not aggressed on very often. Therefore, we definitely want to jam the river. So I thought This hand was really well played. Kind of disappointing to start with a really well played hand because people want to see blood, but maybe the next hand is going to be better. This is value betting, value raising 101. If you're watching this, guys, and you're not making a stack here from Ace King against a recreational player, you're doing a lot wrong, and this is one of the first things to fix. Okay, let's take another spot.
Yeah, can I ask a question? If like River is the Queen of Hearts, what we should do now?
Firstly, be upset
Also?
a little bit. The Queen of Hearts River, like, firstly, the flush would be backdoor, so it's not as alarming, but it is still pretty alarming. There's still quite a lot of combos of flushes. You are at SPR1 against the recreational, and now I really do worry that it's too thin to jam on the Queen of Hearts River. There's a lot of hands that beat you now. You probably still want to make some form of value bet though, and what I always say to students is don't shy away from like making a block bet in that spot, even though the SPR is 1 and it looks like I should shove or fold, right? Because there's only one bet left. You don't have to. If you think your hand can value bet, you know, third pot, but not all in, then value bet third pot. That's always an option too. So there's something in between panicking and checking and panicking and jamming, and it's not panicking and like betting small in these spots sometimes.
And then if I bet like a third of the pot and then fold to jam, no.
Yeah, typically, no, you want to fold to a jam. It's going to be you're going to have a bluff catcher at that point, Shu, right? And it's going to be very underbluffed. So you guys know the drill. If you have a bluff catcher and a spot's very underbluffed, you're just getting destroyed. Like, they're going to call ace king. They're going to call aces. They're going to call ace jack usually if they're a station. They're going to call king seven if they're a station. And they're going to shove with a straight or a set or a flush or something. That's what they're going to shove with. They're very unlikely to take a formerly showdown value hand and shove it on the Queen of Hearts River. So Shu's been doing her research. She just mentioned when I paused there that she's been watching your stream, Jurgen, and looking at your hands that you've sent in and really sort of sussing out her opponent here. You scared by that, Jurgen?
A bit, yeah. No, not really. Not really.
Better than me, like nothing to scare. I'm more like admire, you know.
She's taking the attitude of like, I'm the underdog here. She's trying to lull you into a false sense of security,
Yeah,
I think.
I guess.
I am. I just asked the fact.
All right, pocket kings. Let's see what you think of this hand from Jurgen. So Jurgen opens under the gun to 2.2 and gets 3-bet by the hijack. Goes for a small 4-bet. Your thoughts, please.
No, I should go bigger. He has like 200 BB. Like just do like 23, something like that.
He has 200 BB. We don't.
Oh yeah, true. Just do like 21, like 3 times, right? I don't know.
Do you want to defend yourself, Jurgen?
Yeah, I can agree that it's small.
Suspicious.
Yeah, but they don't notice. I think most of them. Some do, but most of them don't.
So, in general, I don't hate the sizing. Like, if you're 4-betting often and you're going to be like 4-bet folding ace king and queens here and stuff like that, and you just want to like play 4-bet pots, I like the sizing. I think when you have kings and aces at 10 and L, I'm a bit more inclined to agree with Shu's first reaction, which was just put more money in the pot with big hand. I think that's like kind of caveman, but I think it's right at these stakes. 7-5 deuce all monotone, and we have the chance to fast play by c-betting some sizing, or we could slow play. Thinking about those factors a bit here, Shu, what would you lean towards? Do you think Jurgen should bet the flop, check the flop? How big?
I will bet if I were him, I would bet be like 10, like just 10%.
Okay, yeah, I think that's normal for monotone boards. Let's forget about the GTO nerd here. I play B10 on monotone boards for a second here and actually think about what might be highest EV just against pool in this spot. Think about our factors. You think check might be higher EV? Okay, why? That's interesting.
Yeah, because it's kind of favor the low board, kind of, I mean, connected with open-enders and favors the caller, so should just check.
So this is
not our board.
So this is interesting. The our board thing, right? If we look at the cheat sheet here, if we're saying that it's not our board, it's their board, they'll do a lot of betting. That is generally right. Like, we do want to check a lot in spots where our opponent is going to do lots of betting. In other words, next node over bluffed or next node over aggressed or just aggressed a lot. We might check a lot when we think that's the case. But I actually wonder, are people really betting that often on this monotone board here? Like, are they really bluffing like the king jack of hearts or something like that? I am skeptical that the next node is going to be played aggressively. I think if you check here, it's going to be played really passively, actually. So I wonder if check is really right. I think the villain is quite merged and quite drawy here, and not drawy like massively, but they can easily have like nines with a spade that's never folding flop or turn, jacks with a spade that's never folding flop or turn, ace king with the ace of spades that's never folding flop or turn. I can see tons of these second best hands in their range, and I want you guys to really think about this first factor. Force yourselves to assess above all else the drawiness, mergedness of the opponent's range compared with the polarness of it. I don't think they're super polar here. They do have some air. They have hardly any nutted hands. Like they have hardly any flushes here, like only a couple. I think they mostly have some pair. And if they do have those hands, I want to be betting against this pool. I want money going into the pot. I have some sympathy for check here because the investment ceiling is near, which is a slow play factor because we are in a 4-bet pot. However, I just worry that there's too much passivity in this spot, and I just want to get money in now because there's so many cards that kill action here, right? Let's just keep this very simple and basic. If you check and they check back and an ace comes or a spade comes or something, you get no money from Queen of Hearts, Queen of Clubs, which is a really likely hand from that sort of hand now. So I think I like this bet.
Can I ask a question on the investment ceiling?
Always, yep.
So you say that the investment ceiling is near. Do you mean because the stack to pot ratio is low?
Correct.
Or do you mean because the kings is just not good enough? Because I think you just want to put the money in by the end on a safe runouts.
Yeah, the kings is amazing on like almost all runouts. It's just that you're already like you 4-bet pre, you're already so close to the investment ceiling. Like you can imagine that like it's a high ceilinged building. You're like in some grand cathedral, but you're like standing on a really high podium, and so you're close to it. That's kind of what's going on here, rather than like you're on the ground and you need to like climb all the way up like you do in a single raise pot. Okay, Shu, what would you... In fact, I'll do it this way. What do you think about Jurgens' line? He bets third pot.
I think it's good. Yeah. I mean, the spade is also still calling, and overpair also calling.
Good. I like what you're doing. You're thinking about the merged hands. See that? You're thinking villains still really merged. They don't have air here really at all. They just have some second best made hand. I want to keep betting. Excellent. That's how you get rid of your slow play obsession, as you put it earlier. Like if you end up like accidentally slow playing everywhere, you just think about mergedness compared with polarness, and that's the most important factor of those 5 factors by far. If you check here, they might shove some of those hands. They might get panicky and just bet. They might not. But if you bet, you kind of know that their flop calling range is very likely to call again on the turn here at these sticks. Very likely, because nothing changed. Right.
But the thing is, I feel like when I play the Russian Cash 10, I feel like the people tend to bluff a lot more in the 3-bet pot. They don't like, if they don't have anything or whatever, they really just bluffing. That's why I like to check and let them bluff. You know,
you need to be
tendency
careful.
is bluffing more. Yeah.
You need to be careful that you don't apply that too generally across the board, because it's going to be very texture and line dependent, as we said at the start. If they've taken a line where they just have a very condensed range, it's not going to be right for you to start checking and hoping that they bluff. Whereas if they're polar, they're an aggressive player, and they have bet the flop in the turn and it's a dry board, and you know they're taking a more polarizing line, then absolutely you should slow play. There are times when people are very aggressive in 3-bet pots, but overall you should find that they're not as aggressive as a solver. I don't know if you've ever played against 5 solvers, but then you would see what aggressive actually looks like in a 3-bet pot. I think with humans, you might say they're more aggressive in certain situations than others, and maybe in a 3-bet pot they get a bit panicky and attached and stuff like that. But they're probably not like that aggressive compared with GTO.
But just my experience, they like to stab a lot more when you check to them. They just think you have ace king, you know, like you don't have any, so you didn't bet. And there's low board, and they're just like, oh, I need to protect my pocket nines. I don't know. Pocket
No,
eights.
you're right. They do bet a lot on low boards with those kinds of hands. And I think if you played this in a 3-bet pot and it wasn't monotone, I think checking the overpair is a really good way to go. I think there is quite a bit of investment on the next node there. So if you bring up the cheat sheet, like I think the next node is kind of bluffed a good amount and it's stabbed a good amount by these other hands as well. And a good way to get much nearer to the investment ceiling on a low board is to check raise and overpair. I don't love check call as much unless we know they're like an over bluffer. But I like check raise in those situations because they are betting too often with like their medium hand draws, some air as well. So yeah, absolutely. Okay. Third pot. I think this is fine. I think we have maybe missed a slight exploit here, Jurgen. What do you think, Jurgen, you could do with your sizing, given what we've just said, that like this calling range from flop is very pair heavy, pair plus spade heavy, ace of spades heavy with a king, that sort of thing. What could you do on turn here?
Yeah, I actually don't know.
I think you could size this up. You could do it less smoothly, less geometrically, and actually get more money in the pot right now just to build pot against these hands that we think are grossly underfolding. Like, put it this way, if I said to you, how do you feel about bluffing King Queen of Hearts in this spot? How do you both feel about that?
I would probably find it, but think that's also one of my biggest problems, that I would find it.
I will not bluff this. I don't think I'll just
I
check
think I would,
flop and give up.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on this one, Shu. If I have King Queen of Hearts here and I'm at 10 and L and my opponent's called my c-bet on 7-5 deuce monotone and the 3 of clubs comes, I'm very pessimistic about my fold equity in this spot. Unless maybe I know I'm against like a tighter reg who's going to like fold jacks and queens by river or something like that. But I think against like the global pool, there's just far too many fish in this pool that are just not going to fold this turn. So if it's a kind of underfolded turn spot, right? Back to the cheat sheet, keep showing you this, right? Next node is underfolded. That's a fast play criterion, right? If the next node is underfolded. So if you bet here, or sorry, the current node. So if you bet here bigger, I think it's still really underfolded. And so betting bigger is going to be a good idea. I think that's a thing we could have done. Okay, we hit the jack of spades on the river. What the hell is going on now?
All in.
All in. Well, your rival checked the river. So this is a very interesting fast play, slow play spot. What's villain's range like? Let's start with the polarization mergedness. What do we think they have here? Shu, what's going on here?
They could have just a pair. Well, they could have a spade, I think. And they will call. Yeah, I think on the turn, if they don't have a spade, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah, they're likely to have a spade, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so again, we want to fast play against merged, condensed ranges. We want to slow play against polar ranges. Is villain more merged or more polar here?
Merged. It's more merged.
Jurgen, what do you think?
I mean, he will call.
I think that the 4 spade actually polarizes his range, his villain's range, because he still has a lot of ace of spades that he just calls twice.
Does he have a lot of ace of spades? Like, he's called a 4-bet. Like, what does he have that's ace of spades here that wasn't previously ace of spades? Maybe ace king,
Not a lot, no.
but two
Ace king.
combos really, like ace of spades, king of clubs.
Is queen
And
of
then
spades?
Yeah, that was already the nuts though.
Yeah, then just call, right? There's nothing else to do. Don't raise. They'll just call you.
Yeah.
Call.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nothing we can do about that
If
though.
you don't bet, they will just all in on the river.
Okay, so in what
Yeah.
sense then, Jurgen? Let me sort of try and dissect your argument a bit more here and maybe hit back against it. In what sense are they polarized here then? Like how does the Jack of Spades river give them bad hands that they might bluff now? Let me ask it that way.
Yeah, probably none, or not a lot. So they have the pocket pairs without the spades that they call, and then and then polarize is the wrong word, I guess.
Right.
So if you they have more nuts. So they have, I mean, more, not that much. It's only going to be like 3 combos extra or 2 combos extra. Yeah, maybe I'm just wrong, and indeed it's.
So I think what's happened here is you've been a bit too vague, Jurgen, about 4 flushes polarizing, therefore I check. I think you've applied like a bird's eye view, like zoomed out principle here, when actually we need to be more hand reading the specific run out and line of the opponent. If villain does have queens, no spade, they might actually call if you shove because there's not much left and they might feel attached and committed. Remember your target audience, right? You are playing against bad poker players very often in these pools. And when they've put in this much money with queens, they might not fold just because it's a 4th spade on the river. You might think they do, you might fold there, they might not fold queens. One thing's for sure, if you check, they are not betting, right? Almost certainly not with 10s or queens or something like that without a spade. If they have 10s with a spade, they should probably shove if you check, but they might not because it's only a 10 high flush. So people are scared, passive, and sticky at low SPRs in big pots. That's how humans play. They are cornered, scared animals who don't want to fold because they're committed and attached, but equally they're not going to be like really aggressive here with 9s, no spade, just because like you check. They could still be winning. They might still think they're winning against ace king. They're just not going to bluff that hand really ever. So you need to definitely shove this river yourself. As played, check call worked out. Villain hit a set and thought it was good when you checked and went for value. Okay, I get it. I think that's fair. Like, people don't expect you to check a spade here. So it worked. If you shove, it's probably still the case that you get the stack against this hand. And this hand is an insensitive hand. This hand isn't relevant to your EV. The hands that are relevant to your EV are like queens, no spade, aces, no spade. And against those, shove is better because they might call, but they're sure as hell not betting, right? So again, thinking that they they are polar here was just jumping the gun a little bit and seeing the fourth spade. I think they're more merged. That's the question we return to. That is your compass. If you are lost with respect to fast play, slow play situations, I want you to return to how merged / polar are they. That is just the meat and potatoes of this lesson.
Yeah, I say on the river, they just need to be right 25% of the time if Jurgen shove, because his SPR is really low. So they're like, oh, maybe, 10 of spade is good, or my set is good, like I'll just call just in case you're bluffing.
Yeah, so that's a very common thought process at these stakes, and it's not even that they even need to have that logic. They might just be like, wah, wah, and that's their thought process, literally, and then they call. All right, Shu, you're up. Jurgen's now going to critique some of your fast play, slow play decisions. Still going with the underdog act here, tending to be scared. Open sevens.
I'm the underdog.
This is the rhetoric. This is the narrative we're going with. Let us know who you think is the underdog in the comments. Okay, so we get 3-bet by the big blind and we call the 3-bet. Jurgen, what do you think?
I think it's fine call. Nothing else to do, I guess.
We face third pot on deuce 4-3 and we decide to call. Okay with that?
Yeah, I think it's fine. But I actually like raising here. Just small, not too big. Just go like 20, 21, something like that. Just because you benefit so much from the fold equity. If they have all the king, jack, king, queen, all these mediocre hands, it just benefits so much from them folding those hands. And if they jam or if they do anything crazy, you just fold because you're mostly behind, or they have a very high equity draw. And then you can, if they call, you can reevaluate them. Reevaluate is maybe not the correct word, but then you can see what happens on the turn.
We can always reevaluate. We can always reevaluate, but we shouldn't do things to reevaluate. That's like the pet peeve I have, and I know you're not saying that. I like it.
The reason for raising here is just it's for value, because you're gonna get called by worse hands. And then also for protection. I mean, we don't raise for protection solely, but in this case, it's just super important that if they fold all their over cards without the ace or without the flush draw, because they're not gonna fold anyway, then I think you just benefit so much from it. That's why I think I would raise. I don't do it always though, but.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting play, and it's a non-standard play. I don't know if that would even cross your mind normally here, Shu, to like raise the sevens. Is that on your radar?
No. It's not.
And I think it's a more advanced thing. I think it's a little bit out with the scope of today, because today we're mainly talking about thicker value hands, and this is the very thin value denial raise. But I think what makes raise quite viable here is that people are just c-betting everything in spots where they shouldn't. And the more they do that, the more merged they become, and the more we actually want to fast play even for thin value with very vulnerable hands. So yeah, I really like that point. I think it's an excellent analysis, but I'm not at this point that bothered whether we find raise here or not. I don't think it's like, something that needs to be on our radar immediately here.
I think call is also fine. It's not that it's bad or anything.
Yep, I agree.
I hit.
So the 9 comes and it goes check, check. This is also a fast play, slow play spot, right? Because we do kind of have a value-ish candidate here. Shu, what do you think about the opponent's range when they c-bet the flop small, you call, and then they check this 9 of hearts turn? What do you think their range is like here?
Ace king. It could have. Oh no, not flush draw. Yeah, it's like ace king. Maybe sometimes people slow play aces. Just say, oh, I called, I must have a pair,
What type of hand? Let's move your thought process away from like exact hands. What type of hand do they usually have?
One pair hand, medium strength hand, not like a set.
Okay. And if they had an overpair, which is like the stuff they have right? They're 3-bet, or their big pairs are actually like tens, jacks, queens, kings, aces. What do you expect them to do on the turn with those hands?
Usually they bet, but I sometimes check.
But don't project what you do.
Just let them bluff.
Right.
Yeah, because every time I feel like when I'm checking, and people like to stab. When I check to them, I bet small. I check to them, and they just bluff just to like feel off their chips.
This isn't a bad spot. I agree in this spot. If you check as the big blind, it will get reopened a lot by lots of different hand classes, and there'll be some spew. I do think you're a bit obsessed with like getting them to bluff and getting them to spew. I think like that's maybe got too much weight in your thought process at the moment, but I do agree this is an okay spot for it. But don't project that onto pool. Pool with jacks here isn't going for that check jam enough. They're actually just betting. That's their imbalance in this spot. And so when they check, they're moving more towards like big cards. The hand class I want you to talk about on turn here is big over cards that have just missed. And if we think villain has a ton of those in range, I would actually lean towards, fast playing my thin value hand, if you will, because the fold equity is very useful. And the more of their range is stuff like ace, king, ace, queen, king, jack, the more we get the green light to actually go ahead and bet here. So small betting on this turn is a really nice play just to like deny that equity and exploit the fact they have too many of those big cards in range that we want to get folds from. Useful fold equity. We hit the 7 on the river, and another part of play slow play is not just whether to bet, but it's how big to bet. I'm going to go to you first, Jurgen. What kind of sizing do you like here? What do you think of Shu's sizing, and how would we think about bet sizing in this spot?
So if you think about their range, what it is now, it's just like you said, mostly high cards, some ace highs. They probably don't have any big overpairs. So I think if you want to get thin value, you want those type of hands to bluff catch. So I think I go a little bit smaller. On the other hand, I don't know if they're elastic enough between B75 or B50. I think they are between B33 and B75. And then, of course, overbet is not. I would never overbet here. So that's what I think.
Right. I like that analysis. So we have a hand that is really far from its investment ceiling still, because its investment ceiling is everything, right? Sevens is strong enough. A set of sevens is strong enough to play for everything. But we don't want to do that because of the factor of current node overfolded. If we go all in, we're just never going to get called. It's an amazing spot to go all in as a bluff, you could say, right? Because we're going to have insane fold equity against like just big cards in this spot. Therefore, when we're trying to get value, right, we need to be thinking that villain actually just has a lot of like too big cards. And what are they going to call? Ace King might call this sizing we've picked here. Maybe we want to go a little bit smaller. I can see an argument for both, but definitely agree with not potting or overbetting a spot where the opponent's range is too weak. So that's the thing here, Shu. Your opponent is just too weak. They just have too face up and weaker range, and they're just not going to be defending it enough. When your opponent has lots of bad looking hands in their range, they overfold to big sizes. And when they have lots of good looking hands in their range, even if they're just bluff catchers, they're going to underfold to big sizes. And that's like how we decide when to bluff, when to value bet really big in games like this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so overall I played okay this hand, or I should have raised on the flop.
I think raising on flop is fancy and advanced and not necessary at the moment. I think betting the turn is an improvement on checking the turn, because I just think they're under protecting their checking range and they're just folding a ton.
And if he shove, I just fold.
Yeah, bet fold is probably a line that you're not utilizing enough, but it is a very powerful weapon against this pool because they play so face up.
So on the turn I can bet like 33%.
Exactly, or even 25%. Well, yeah, actually on this texture with deuce 4-3, I would size it up to at least B33, because there's no way that ace queen ace king is likely to fold to that, because it's got the straight draw as well, and your hand's extra vulnerable. So you could even half pot this turn, honestly, against pool, I think.
You see, I'm playing, when I'm out of position, I'm playing exactly like the people like me.
Mm-hmm.
If I have aces, I'll just check, and they have anything, they were like, oh, I need to protect, and as you said,
Right.
I can bet half pot or yeah, and then I just
most people just don't protect their checking range.
You mean like out of position, like?
Yeah, even in position not, but out of position they just don't. If big blind has aces here after the flop, he bet small. He's just gonna go bet. He's just gonna go bet most of the time. You always have there will always be some that don't, but they just show you what they have. And like if they go big here on the turn, if they would bet anything above B75, I just fold my sevens. I think you should just fold your sevens, in my opinion, because it's going to be very high equity draws. So it's going to be like A6 of diamonds, and then a bunch of overpairs. They already under 3-bet pre-flop, and then yeah, I mean the range is just too strong. And if they check, they just have mostly overcards. And then you can actually bet freely with your whole range, and you're going to get so many folds. You'll be amazed, I guess.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like you said a lot of people don't protect their checking range. But if I'm the 3-better, is it possible? If I'm in position, maybe not big blind, but yeah, if I'm the 3-better and this board, I would just check my aces in position on the flop.
What I would say here is that what Jurgen's doing is what you should do. He's saying, what did they do? It's like you're studying animals in nature and you're like, how does the leopard behave in this situation? It's like you observe it, you note it, that's what happens. The empirical evidence is what matters. Shu, what you're doing is that you're focusing too much, in my opinion, on what you would do in your own game plan and the habits you've built up, and you're projecting them onto the pool. And the issue with that is that you are the opposite of the pool in this spot. You're actually an absolute minority of the pool with respect to how you're playing this spot. So when you project that onto the pool, you're actually playing against like a made up villain who usually isn't there. So we need to understand that, and I say this in general, guys, like when you're a studied reg, you probably have a big edge in this game, at least pre-rake, right? And then you're like trying to beat the rake, and you're much better than the average player playing these 10-NL games. And therefore, to project your own mentality onto the average player is usually bad. Instead, it's better to say, yeah, it's like what you see is all there is, right? They check the turn. Therefore, they're just underprotected. It's intuitive. There's not high level thought. There's not this tricky, trappy, slow playing going on. Usually, that's what we need to do. So less projecting, more just like empirical facts about pool shoe and how to react to them.
I'm definitely
Okay.
gonna have to look out if I play against you because you're gonna take a lot of my
That's
stacks.
what I want to say. So if I play with you, I will win, right? Because
Yes, every single time.
Yeah.
I'll probably if you have aces there and I have
yeah, aces, I will check. I will check.
like if you have aces there and I have a hand like I don't know Jack 10 or whatever. Now you can't have Jack 10, but
Yeah, perfect. I check where I bet small. You raise me with sevens. I would just, I don't know. I would just call. Yeah.
yeah. But if I raise flop and then the turn is a 9, I'm not gonna bet the turn again because your range is just already filtered on the flop, and then I don't have. Then the advantage of the sevens is gone. If you would call the flop, but in this case, so if I just call sevens here and the big blind checks, and you have aces, I'll probably lose a lot of money just because I will stop turn and I probably shove river because I on a dry run out, because most of the time they're just gonna fold the river. Unless you stop turn for a pot, of course. I mean, you have to stop the turn for a small size, and then you can go big on the river and make them fold all their bluff catchers mostly.
With sevens, like you'd be value betting river like against this pool if you took that line, and it might be too thin. Don't think you want to be bluffing sevens on the river, but with like Jack 10 of clubs or something,
Yeah,
or King
that's
Queen
what
of right, okay. So if you had King Queen of clubs, she's going to check the turn. You're going to blast off. She's going to take your whole stack by slow playing. She wants to slow play against you because you are more polar than the pool. You're bluffing more. You're investing more in the next node with air than the pool is. You're an anomaly. So if she knows that about you, she wants to slow play against you. But sure, your general slow play with aces here against the overall pool just won't be that good because they'll be under aggressing. So like if you run into Jurgen, great. But with a lot of villains, you have to be careful because some of them can be very passive here. I think aces is a fine check on the turn. No problem with that at all. But it won't be as effective against the average player as it would against someone like Jurgen who's exploiting. Jurgen's like the MDA reg. He's coming after a range that looks weak. He's bluffing in spots where he thinks you're overfolding. He's the guy you want to trap. You don't just want to trap random people who might be very passive as well. So just be careful with that. Okay, let's do one more hand.
No.
One more spot, and then we will wrap this up for today. We have pocket eights. We open the hijack, the small blind 3 bets, and we call. The flop is Queen 8-3. Villain bets half pot, and Shu decides to go all in. No, I'm just kidding. She didn't go all in. She just called. Jurgen, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I think call is fine. You can of course raise, but I wouldn't here because their range is still very wide and the fold equity is fairly high. Stack to pot ratio is not that. It's not going to be that hard to get the money in by the river. So I think I just call here.
Yeah, I think the biggest factor here is the investment ceiling being relatively near because villains already bet half pot. You're in position so you can facilitate pot growth really easily. The thing is there, Shu, the reason I like your slow play in this case is that you're going to get the chance to bet the turn in the river anyway. It's not like you're risking the pot stagnating. And the other thing I just want to point out is that villain is still kind of polar because they've half potted the 3-bet pot. So they're more polar in this spot than they've been previously. They have aces, kings, ace, queen, stuff like that here. And then they have like a bunch of bluffs like ace, king, ace, jack. They have some hands in the middle too, like jacks or tens, but they might not be betting for half pot. So a more polar range, stack to pot ratio that's taking care of itself, pot that's growing nicely, a hand that does not want fold equity at all, like really not benefiting much from fold equity whatsoever. We want villain to hit an ace if they have ace king, that kind of thing. This is a clear slow play spot. I think it's actually a bit lazy to say you can of course raise, because I think raising's horrible in this spot, and I don't think it's okay to just sort of gloss over horrendous lines as like things that you could do. I think that's a bit too gentle. I think you want to say raise is bad here in this spot, Jurgen.
Yeah, I can agree after the explanation for call.
That makes sense, Shu?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's what I thought.
Okay, the plot thickens. Villain now bets the turn. Okay, Shu, what do you think here then? I'll get your thought process first this time.
I mean, he bet pretty big, but I see the SPR is pretty good on the river. It's already like, so I would just call. And I have the 8 of clubs. I would kind of block the clubs.
Okay, go. Let me force you to think about the polarization mergeness of this range a bit more.
So this is more better, right? So more polar, actually just slow play, as you said. And the investment ceiling is we're approaching there organically. Like I just call, yeah.
Jurgen, any critique?
No, I think call us the play. Don't think you can do any. You don't need to do anything else.
I don't think I can get called by worse if I raise.
Oh, you can
so
definitely
I
get
think
called
you
by
are.
worse.
I think you are.
That's not the problem.
Yeah, I think
Okay, okay.
Ace Queen will always call you Queen 10.
That's true. That's true.
There are enough hands that will call you, even if you jam. So it doesn't matter. But the problem is you're not gonna get the money in. You're not gonna get the money from the times they are bluffing. So and
Yeah.
stack to pot ratio is not that high. There are no, I mean, there are bad runouts, but not that much. So I don't think you need to do anything else here than call. And just
Yeah.
if they're all blasting off, just let them blast off.
So we're weighing up here. How bad is it when a bad run out happens? When a king comes, like how bad is that? I don't think it's that bad. I still think you're going to stack like, not only are you going to stack like ace king now, but you're also still going to stack quite a bit of the value bets from the turn, like the queen 10 or the aces or something like that. And when it's a brick, it's just, of course, far better to slow play here on every single brick river. If the river was a brick, and there were a lot of them, you definitely want to just call the turn. And I think you're both right that this is absolutely a call. And Shu, I think you had a great thought process there about villain being polar. Remember, I did have to prompt you to think about that, right? And I will have to prompt you initially. Eventually, you're going to start thinking about it yourself, right? You're just going to be like, right, they're more polar, therefore I slow play. Where your thought process went off the rails is when you said you can't get called by anything worse. That's wildly false, right? It's like very false. You did tell me in your application that I should be blunt and brutal with you in feedback. So yeah, let's go with wildly false. And because of that, it kind of poses a looming danger to your decision making as a poker player. Like if you have the good stuff in your thought process, but then you're capable of like these random unthought through impulsive thoughts that aren't really quantified, you can derail your good thought processes, right? So part of how I'm going to be coaching you is going to be saying, yes, you're good at applying the good stuff. You're a good student in that respect. Maybe you need a few reminders to do it, right? Because you've just met these concepts in a formal setting. But like, what are these saboteur thought processes in your brain, and how are they kind of like ruining the thought process? But yeah, you're both right. This is an absolutely mandatory slow play situation on both the flop and the turn. And I think a lot of players make a mistake here and get antsy and jam here and just get too worried about like a bad river coming and 9 coming, and it feels painful when it happens, right? But yeah, so important to allow ace king, which is so many combos, to keep bluffing here. Even if it's a bit underbluffed, there just isn't enough gain by fast playing this spot. There aren't enough factors going for fast play. Villain is polar. The next node is like potentially bluffed a decent amount, although maybe not over bluffed. The investment ceiling is really near. The hand doesn't benefit much from fold equity. The slow play factors are just triumphing here. Like, I've given you this blackboard of factors so that you can ingrain them and scan through them in your hand review. I don't want you to scan through these when you're playing. It's impossible. I just want you to bear the first one in mind and notice when investment ceilings are nearer and further away, and notice how vulnerable your hand is a bit as well. These two and 3, these are harder to get your head around and they'll take a bit more time. But where I really want you guys using this is in your study sessions, like in your own hand review. I want you going through your hands. So your homework this week is to go through 25 hands each and apply this litmus test. Go through 2 to 3 minutes on each hand, decide whether you should fast play or slow play, post them in our Discord channel. Some of them, you don't have to post every single one of them, but post at least 5 of them in the Discord channel each. I want to see them with your thought processes. I want you accountable, and I want you both playing another 10k hands. And we're going to start bringing graphs onto the screen. So from next week, we're going to look at the hands you played between now and when we next record, right? And it's going to be at least 10k for each of you. And we're going to see who got off to the best start, who's running good, who's running bad, how did your weeks go. We'll talk mental game, we'll talk other topics, but I think this is going to be a super fun series. You've both got Carrot Poker School stuff to go through as well. Don't feel like you need to like rush that. That's a slow back burner thing. If you've used code EMBARK25 at Carrot Corner, you've picked up the Carrot Poker School and saved hundreds of pounds of dollars. You don't have to rush through all of it. let's just summarize. How have you guys found this first session on Fast Play Slow Play, and how are you feeling about the race to 25NL? Jurgen, let's start with you.
That's super interesting. It was a good thing to see that some things I don't think about actually. So yeah, it was super interesting. Bit nervous, but yeah, for the rest, I'm looking forward to the rest of it. But for sure.
It's going to be a long journey, and we're right at the
Yeah,
start here. And the sessions you play in this next week, you're going to be like stressed, and you're going to be like more on edge and maybe more tilted if it doesn't go well, because you're going to be like, this is the first graph I have to show. But don't worry about it. If it doesn't go well at the start, it's variance. One of you might get off to a really good start variance wise, the other one might get smashed for 18 buy-ins. This is how it works. So yeah, Shu, how are you feeling about it? How did you find today?
I like this, what I learned today. I definitely learned something very useful. Yeah. That's what I always actually been thinking, but never put into concept how to apply this and what to think about, what's the factors. And now I know. And as I said before, I'm definitely the underdog. So hopefully I'm the turtle, like, well, the rabbit's sleeping and I can take over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here to learn, like from both of you. Yeah.
And, I said in the first episode, the reason you guys have been chosen for this is that you have very good attitudes. You've both already proven to me that you're here for the long haul, that you're going to put in the volume, that you're not going to show up. Neither of you are going to show up next week and be like, I ran bad and then I got tilted and I played 1,000 hands. And like, I just don't expect that from either of you. I expect you to be, yeah, this happened. I ran bad, but I still played 13,000 hands and I still tried my best. And that's what we want in this series. So let's do it. Let's race to 25NL. Looking forward to seeing where this journey takes us. Looking forward to working with you both. I think you're awesome candidates. And thank you for joining me for episode 1. I'll see you guys next week when we record episode 2. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you next time.
Thank you,
Bye.
Coach.